Dan, do you have any adorable giraffes that have stolen food?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry. This one does involve lobsters, but
Are the lobsters stealing
the lobsters are being cooked.
Oh, so they aren't the robsters.
They're not the robsters.
That one's not mine. I stole that one from Dr. McNinja. Go read Dr.
Okay.
McNinja. He's got a villain called the Robster.
The robster.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Man, I love Dr. McNinja.
Yeah.
Until he started telling a really long epic story, and I'm like,
it was great.
Make with the jokes, funny guy.
He did make with the jokes, just in some long-form epic storytelling.
Dr. McNinja returning to Earth, riding the burning corpse of Robot Dracula,
yes,
is the single greatest panel of any webcomic I've ever seen. I love it dearly. Anyway, so this thing happened on a golf course in Florida, Miramar Lakes. At the Miramar Lakes clubhouse, a guy broke in, stole a bunch of lobsters. It says a considerable amount of food, most of which were lobsters.
Okay.
And then he cooked them on site in their kitchen, like in full view of the security cameras.
Okay.
And
that's bold.
Yeah.
That's bold.
And then he ate them. And then he stole a golf cart and took off.
Stole a golf cart, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, this is style. This is I want into food heist prison, and I don't have to steal something fancy. I don't have to steal something expensive. I just need to make sure everyone knows how cool I was when I did this.
Yeah, if he went and pulled a donut on one of the greens as he was leaving, that would be even more.
We don't know he didn't.
Baller. He might have.
Yeah.
Here's what I love about this. It says Scott is currently wanted. Scott is the name of the dude because he was on camera. Everyone knows who he is.
Scot-free.
Scott is currently wanted for burglary and petty theft, but they spelled it petite.
Petite theft.
P-E-T-I-T, which is the French spelling, which as far as I'm aware is where we get our word petty from. So this is just a really highfalutin journalist who's like, I'm going to spell the original French version of petty theft.
Scot-free.
And he got off scot-free. This is wonderful. Yeah, his name is... Oh, this is even better. They never tell you his name. They just refer to him as Scott at one point.
Okay.
There's no part where it says, man named Scott whatever broke into a thing. Oh, there we go. Christopher Scott. Oh, the man with two first names. Christopher Scott, 19 years old. He has a great career ahead of him. When you're already not even 20 and you steal and cook and eat lobsters on camera and then pull some donuts in a golf cart on your way out of town and then get a cool nickname.
Yeah. Yep. We were expecting great things from you, Scot-free.
Yeah.
The next one has to really, really knock our socks off, though. So, we need caviar stolen and eaten on camera to go with your lobsters. We need, let's also, the podcast intentionally linked does not condone thievery of any sort.
Hey, so I was about to say a sentence, and in that sentence I was going to apply an adjective to the thieves in Food Heist Prison, and that adjective was hard-bitten.
Yeah.
Do we call them hard-bitten criminals?
Yeah.
Is there a better word than that?
I mean... hard-biting criminals?
The hard-bitten criminals in Food Heist Prison are cheering for you, Scot-free.
Yep.
Anyway.
That's actually a great one to have picked. Did you do that on purpose? With
No.
The 19-year-old? You just found it out?
Totally... I didn't learn he was 19 until 5 seconds before I said it.
Because Donald suggested this podcast episode be dad advice.
Yes.
From Dad Brandon and Dad Dan.
Which feels like a great thing. So at time of recording, I'm going to be 47 in 3 days.
Yeah.
And you're already 48, right?
50.
I know. It's hard.
Yes, I am 48.
I'm also a hard-bitten, but not a criminal.
We've talked about the children you've raised. You now get to.
I have been hard bitten by some of them.
You now get to age slowly for a few years, because
would be great.
they cause some gray hairs. So
Yeah. I actually, after last time, you said that I should grow my beard out really long because it was so white.
Mm-hmm.
And Don vetoed that idea without even pausing to think.
Mm-hmm.
Just
you didn't mention Santa?
I did mention Santa, and then I realized my 8-year-old was like right next to us, and I said, I could be Santa, like at church or something. But
your 8-year-old?
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I'm aware,
your 8-year-old?
She
looks forward to Santa's visits.
Looks forward to Santa's visits.
Okay.
So yeah, but I will not look like Santa when it happens. But eventually,
dad advice. We have dad advice.
Dad advice. So
do we actually have dad advice?
I assume so. I've got 6 kids. Maybe 3 of whom are going to turn out pretty good.
It's a pretty good ratio, depending on, I mean, not a good ratio if you're at school, shooting for grades, but, that's a pretty good ratio for, I don't know, jumping out of airplanes without a parachute and surviving.
Yeah.
Right?
3 of my kids survived being thrown out of an airplane.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would be both a successful and a horrible father. I am joking, of course. All 6 of my kids are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're doing great things. And you have 3.
I have 3
that I'm aware of.
My 3 boys, yes. And so I don't know if I have like dad advice in the I think I might have advice to younger people that they might find useful, but it's not like dadding, right? I don't know.
Isn't advice for younger people at some level parental regardless?
Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see how
give me an example of advice that you think is useful but not dad advice.
Like when you go to college, they are going to try to push you really hard to pick a major really fast because the college is best served generally by getting as many people in and out as possible. But you are not necessarily best served by getting in and out very quickly. You are best served by using this time which society allots to you to find your way, to actually find your way, and not get railroaded into a job that is then eventually going to be miserable and you want to go just end up back at college and find a different career.
Yeah.
Right? So don't necessarily let them force you into a career path as a high school student or even as a newer college student.
That's great dad advice.
Yeah?
That's not the advice I imagine either of our dads gave us when we went to college.
No.
But it is, I think, very good, understanding, emotionally intelligent dad advice.
There is a caveat to that. That's if you're going to a school that is not super expensive.
Yeah.
Right?
If you're paying, I don't know, $60,000 a year, which is low for some, then maybe you do want to get in and out of there really fast.
Right.
One of the great pieces of advice that my parents gave me was to never take out a student loan.
Okay.
And this was like in the 80s and 90s when they were telling me this.
Yeah.
Student loans have been predatory forever. And so their form of financial prep that they gave to me, which I'm now passing on to you, Scott Free, is saving up your money as a kid is a good habit to get into, but it's not going to get you through college. It's not going to pay for school. What's going to pay for school is scholarships. So do a lot of research, figure out what's out there, and just really study hard and get good grades because that will help you pay for school better than anything else you can do.
Do we need to give the current generation more stress about their grades? Is that good advice right now?
I think that it is. It was helpful advice to me because it was also, here's more stress on this part of your life, but here's less stress on this part of your life. Yes, get a job, because that's a good thing to do and it builds character and whatever. But you don't need I spent one summer as a groundskeeper at a cemetery, and earning minimum wage. There's no way that put me through school.
Yeah.
But
what is so that we can have context for this, so we're not just boomering around. What's tuition for a semester at UVU right now? That'll help me know, because this can add up. And I would agree with the trying to avoid the loans. I don't think the loans themselves are predatory. I think the entire system is predatory. The loans were made with good intentions, and they actually are very low interest loans. And they're not there to be predatory, but the system adapted to the many of them existing, which drove prices up, which made people take larger loans than they would have had to if the loans hadn't existed, and then suddenly it traps people in large debt cycles.
Yeah, that is true.
In-state tuition, you're looking at about $6,000, and then
is that for a year or is that a semester?
This is, to my understanding, semester.
Semester, yeah, that's.
Wow, and three times higher for out of state.
Yep, about.
Well, that's really common. I'm not, but
your other states right there.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's getting. It is.
Well,
pretty.
Look, search instead for tuition at UVU College.
All right.
It told us what the tuition was, but you searched for the tuition.
Right, you're right.
And it didn't tell us. That's too
look
bad.
and see if that's a year. Wouldn't be surprised if that's a semester, but it costs per semester.
Honestly, similar to some of the opinions we expressed in our episode about book publicity changing.
Yeah.
And the finances that Generation Z is under right now are completely different than what we dealt with in X.
Not completely different. I find that I can relate to a lot of the posts. I don't think they're completely different. I think they have changed. I think it's the generation before us that it's completely different from. Like a lot of people talk. If you read what they're saying, those in their 20s right now are saying, it's like, how would I ever go on a vacation and things like that. I was that way in my 20s. I could not afford vacations. I couldn't go anywhere.
But I think we had, if nothing else, the role model of our parents who did eventually grow out of the poor, starving college student phase into the nuclear family, suburban home phase. And I don't think Zoomers have that same sense of hope that we had.
They don't. I don't think it's as different as they act because we acted that way as well. It is worse, right? You can just see that in the fact that minimum wage that I was earning is the same minimum wage that they're earning. And minimum wage did not go very far 20 years ago when I was earning minimum wage, and it has not significantly changed. That alone is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
However, I think that there's definitely some stressors. One is the housing market, the rise of what is it? Not Uber, but HomeAway, VBRO.
Oh yeah.
Vacation rentals.
Airbnb,
there it is. The rise of that has driven housing prices through the roof, which is really catastrophic for this generation, right? Like, and that's like there's a bunch of crises happening. So, but again, I can at least relate. How about that? I can relate. I couldn't afford a home until Emily and I moved in with Emily, and we could afford barely the townhome.
Yeah.
We could not afford like a family home and things like that until my writing took off. We would have had to stay in the townhome for all of our lives if we were relying on my early writing income and her teacher income. And so I think some of this started when we were looking for these things. But yeah, it's going to be hard for us to give financial advice to the next generation because that system has changed a bunch.
Yeah.
Like even my hangout tuition, I thought of it. I'm like, can you afford an extra $6,000 if that's $6,000 a year? Because that's rough, right? If you're an English major, an extra $6,000 of loans is brutal.
Yeah. Well, and $6,000 is about what we're paying for Dawn.
Okay.
We went back to school.
Is that a semester or a year?
No, it's a year.
Okay. Yeah. So I thought that was
It's
about a year.
Yeah.
So, but what just happened last week, or just this week actually, it was a couple days ago, is one of her professors pulled her aside and said, you're a vocal performance major, but all the classes you're taking are part of the music theory major.
Yeah.
For which there is a full ride scholarship being offered that no one is applying for because no one's a music theory major.
Right.
And so Dawn looked at it and realized that like 1 or 2 classes changed, she could change her major, still do all the vocal performance she wants, but then be eligible for this full ride scholarship that no one else is looking for.
Which is awesome, but kind of to push back on you, people listening here, let's say we've got some older teens listening here who went through COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Their grades were terrible during COVID.
Yeah.
They can't get scholarships.
Well, everyone who went through COVID had terrible grades, right?
There's some who didn't.
Yeah.
And like...
we are decades away from understanding the full ramifications and consequences of shutting the world down for 9 months.
So can I give even dad advice? Like, that's the question. Like,
yeah.
the thing you had me say when I went off the cuff, I can give that advice to my children.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because my children do not have to worry about the price of college. They can go to college and spend 2 years just taking general courses to experiment and find their way.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to do that. And I was lucky because I did have to do loans. I didn't have the grades to get scholarships. But then my career took off, and I was able to pay off those loans.
Yeah.
Which is where the bulk of my first advance checks went.
So,
but I was lucky that I could spend 6 years getting a 4-year degree and find my way into writing. But is that good advice to the people listening? I don't know if it is.
Well, so we said that we started by saying we're going to give advice, and now it's just all doom and gloom. What is a field in which we can give advice that we think is valuable?
Okay. It is not as bad as it seems. I really don't think it's as bad as it seems. I think that, for instance, I think the housing market, now this may be longer term than is available here. Populations are going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
That is a statistical inevitability in modernized first world countries.
Yeah.
That populations are going to start declining. There are going to be more houses than there are people to live in them in coming decades.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to happen as our generation has to be put into homes and cannot maintain a house on their own. As you know, vacation rentals, there's only a certain amount of vacationing you can do in suburbia that people will want to do in suburbia.
Yeah.
This is destined to not be an issue, but it might be 40 years away. So that's not, but like a lot of the things that are happening, for instance, minimum wage is awful right now. But what happened during COVID is that all the places that used to pay minimum wage, they realized if they did, they wouldn't have workers anymore. And the average pay of what is considered normally an unskilled worker has gone up and adjusted. Does that mean we shouldn't have regulation? No, we should definitely raise minimum wage because there's people still being exploited. But it's not as bad as it looks. It never, it rarely is as bad as it looks.
So there's a statistic I saw a couple of weeks ago. And so given how quickly our economy changes, it might be totally different now. But at least as of a couple of weeks ago, they were showing that the economy itself, as measured by wages, by employment, by cost of living, is the best it has been in 50 years.
Right.
But that a vast majority, something like 4 out of every 5 people in America, think that it's the worst it's been in 50 years.
And this I actually was going to bring up. How long has the publishing industry been on the brink of collapse if you listen to the editors and the publishers?
Mm-hmm.
When I first broke in 2005, everyone was talking about the consolidations that were happening, and they're like, publishing's doomed. You're not going to have a job in 10 years. And I went to my agent and I said, should I worry about this? He's like, this has been happening since the mid 1800s, and publishing has only gotten better. And
Yeah.
indeed, what happened is there's never been a better time to be an author in the history of the world than right now. By just numbers of people who can make a living at it. That doesn't help when you're one of the ones that's very hard to make a living because of the kind of whatevers are going on. But statistically, it is. And I think this is the same way. That's not to say that there aren't some things that are conspiring to make life awful for people in their 20s right now. I think the student loans, have driven up prices of schooling. I'm of the belief that there should be a token payment, if anything, to go to college. It betters society. Just even if there's the argument, they'll just go and they'll waste the resources. And I'm like, if they're learning something, that'll pay dividends.
Yeah.
I'm state schools, just make them free. But I mean, that's conspiring. The current state of housing is terrible for that age group demographic. But things aren't running off of a cliff the way they look.
Yeah.
There are ups and downs in different areas, and if you focus only on the downs, it's going to look like life is just terrible and there's no light at the end of the tunnel, and that's not the case.
Yeah, there's lots of things that are going very well. What about relationship advice? Do you have relationship advice? Not necessarily dating advice, because that is very different.
Okay.
Dating apps weren't even a thing when either of us got married. But
do I have relationship advice?
If I can even jump in, one of the questions that I had seen and a lot of my friends asked to their own fathers was, what made you pick mom?
Yeah.
What were the signs that were like, this is someone that I know I can be good with?
Donald, good job. Good job. See, we have right here somebody who's asking these
say,
questions.
if you
Unpaid
want to know
intern
questions,
Donald
I'm happy to
has great. Here, we're just going to give a fatherly advice to unpaid intern Donald. Okay, so there are a handful of things that made me know that Dawn was the one for me, right? Why did I pick mom? There were the superficial ones, which got my attention in the first place, which were she was super hot and she was an English major, so we had a lot to talk about. During the time we were dating, as I still do, I eat ridiculously spicy food. And she ate something and she said, "Oh, man, it's good when your nose starts running." And I was like, I need to marry this girl right now. I remember that specific comment. But ultimately, the decision was that I knew that we shared the same values, which maybe more than anything else has helped us avoid problems and arguments, because the core values kind of as a foundation of our family, I don't have to worry that she thinks fundamentally different about very important things than I do. So shared values, incredibly smart and incredibly helpful. She never did and never has made fun of me.
Yeah.
For example, I don't make fun of her. We are both trying to be very helpful people all the time. And those are the qualities I saw in her that I was like, okay, looks and, sense of humor aside, this is someone who will be a good partner, who will help me succeed in life and that I can help succeed in life.
I give similar advice. There were the superficial things, right? That are still there and still kind of superficial, but I very much like them. I think Emily's very attractive, and things like that. But I had gone through kind of 3 fairly quick relationships, 2 right before Emily, and they were more volatile. And one of the reasons why I broke off the one I ended right before Emily with a wonderful woman who I think very highly of, is that the relationship was turmoil. It was stressful, and to a lot of people, that's what's good about a relationship. When I started dating Emily, a mutual friend of ours started dating someone at the same time, and they had very much the argue hard, make up hard sort of relationship. Lots of fire and passion. I don't want to act like our relationship lacks passion, but I remember being on a date with Emily early on. And the couple we were double dating with were just like falling all over each other, even though they barely met. And Emily and I were walking beside each other and just chatting. And it was really comfortable. And we both kind of looked at that. And Emily's like, should we be like that? And I'm like, do you want to be like that? And she's like, no, not right now. And I'm like, I don't either. And we just, everything about it was calm. And we had the shared values, but we just got along. Mm-hmm. We could always have something to talk about. We always, if we went to a show, we enjoyed the conversation after the show. And she actually kind of panicked about this because her relationships had all been very tempestuous before too. And she's like, isn't a relationship supposed to be that? With Brandon, I just like hanging out with him. And, that plus attraction is important.
Yeah.
But for me, the fact that we just got along, that we were both done with the drama and we were both there to make a committed relationship. And that's what we were both looking for. Mm-hmm. And that we didn't argue and really don't ever argue and never really have is just so nice. So for me, that's what I was looking for. I know that other people have like different ways of looking at things. But I did not want big arguments, big making up. I just wanted someone that I could spend time with, and I always looked forward to spending time with.
Yeah, and that's a good point to bring up. Mm-hmm. Dawn is absolutely my best friend, the way Emily is your best friend. We, I think, are in a weird case because not everybody is still friends with the people they went to college with 25 years earlier. And we still have a very large and very successful friend group. Mm-hmm. But that classic kind of boomer cartoon joke of take my wife, please, so and I just need to get away from her as much as possible. Mm-hmm. No, I was specifically looking for someone that I would want to spend time with, that, not someone that I would have to escape and run off to the bar or the bowling alley or whatever, but she's the person I want to spend time with rather than just the person who cooks
you look
food in the house.
forward to coming home. Yeah. Because you get to hang out with somebody who gets you. Mm-hmm. So there you go. And I will say that mutual friend of ours that had the really tempestuous relationship, it didn't last. Mm-hmm. And he once came to me and said, do you argue all the time? Is that a thing with you? And I'm like, no. He's like, that should have been a sign, huh? And I'm like, well, I can't speak to other people's relationships. But for me, that would have been a sign.
I also want to point out, if I am remembering the timing correctly, the woman that you dated right before Emily is one that we are still both friends with.
Yes,
that I talk to every time I go to New York.
Well, that was two before.
And
my relationship with her was more long distance was the problem with that one.
Okay. Then I know who this other one is.
Fantastic woman. Long distance relationship just was not a thing that I could manage. Mm-hmm. And so, but yes, you know who both of them are. They're both great people that I'm still in touch with, which is something that have kind of fortunate. I didn't have bad breakups.
I did.
Yeah.
I'm the worst breaker-upper ever.
Well, I think they both would have said it was a bad breakup in the moment. How about that? Because I did break up with both of them. But hit us with another question while we still have a few more minutes.
By all means. One that I've always wanted to ask him, and it's been difficult to, is what made you successful in your opinion? How are you successful at work in your eyes?
Ooh. I don't know.
Fair.
Right? And this is the honest truth you have to get from anyone who is in entertainment like me and your father.
It fits.
Is that skill plus working hard plus luck get us there. And the ratio of the three, nobody can know, but luck is not insignificant. Right? And for me, it was, and part of that luck is just complete luck of the draw, but part of it is that I naturally love doing what is market friendly. Mm-hmm. And I would say your father is the same way. I know people as talented or more talented than me whose natural inclinations do not lead toward things that are going to be large scale successful. and they're still successful writers, but maybe not in the tangible ways that the world has provided for me.
Yeah.
But I can't say how much of that was luck. I can say you can put yourself in that situation, but we all did. A bunch of our friends did. And I'm the one who became Brandon Sanderson, or as you put it once, Brandon frickin' Sanderson, I believe.
Yes.
I remember that moment. And so, like, why me? That part becomes luck. And I wish I could give you more.
Well, having had a very different career from
Yes.
you, here's some of my perspective on this. Because below that kind of level of explosion success, I think it is a little easier to tell what's going on. I'm still in the entertainment industry. There's absolutely still a level of luck and privilege involved with that. But one thing I was just talking with a friend just yesterday, actually, is how much I spent the last 15 years constantly hustling for work, which is kind of the life of the freelancer, right?
Yep.
Because I've had book contracts and stuff, but it is an exceptionally rare author who can feed 6 children based solely on book contracts, right? And so that's why I have written for game companies. That's why I've written for movies. That's why I've written for TV. That's why I've done all of this other tie-in stuff. The first 2 or 3 years of writing books, of being published, I was still freelancing and building websites for people. And so if there's anyone in the world who was willing to pay me for words, I gave them words for money. And actually, the context of this conversation was, it is an absolute godsend miracle that I took this job here right before my brain fell apart, because I don't know, I would not have been able to keep up that level of constant hustle given what I've been dealing with for the last year. So
you're sometimes, and I understand why, I'm down on the work you've done here in a year, but it's been fantastic.
Well, thank you very much. That's very good to hear.
People are going to get to see more and more of this over the upcoming years. But
that's true, because most of the things I've been working on aren't out yet.
But if you guys don't know, Dan did lead on all the narrative stuff for the RPG that's coming up, which I absolutely could not have done. And that was a full-time job for multiple months to get that. And so, yeah, anyway.
Yeah. But yes. Thank you. The ultimate point here that I'm making is the advice that I would give. What do I think made me successful? It was that I never stopped looking. Never stopped looking for opportunities, is what I meant to say.
Yeah.
I've got a presentation that I give at writing conferences called All the Eggs in All the Baskets, which is just, get as many baskets as possible and put as many eggs into them as you can, because you never know which one is going to take off. I never would have expected Professional Game Master to be a moneymaker. That paid my mortgage and fed my children for 3 years. And so you just always looking for opportunities to do something valuable.
I guess my piece of advice here then is, because I don't know. I know worse than Dan does. I think Dan does have a handle on it. And his advice here is really good. For me, I would say look for the things where you love the process and follow those to where the career opportunities are. Look less at the results and more at the process. Because the thing I did have control over is the fact that I love the process of writing books. I love the day-to-day work of it. And what drove me away from chemistry is not enjoying the process. Sometimes I enjoyed the results and the high level on that, but what I would be doing for 8 hours a day, I did not enjoy. And, find something. And not everyone gets to write stories for a living. But I could have been a hotel desk clerk if hotel desk clerk paid well enough for my entire life, because the process of go there, help people check in. Like my job, I wasn't even selling because I was late at night. And so people already had their bookings. Make sure they get what they need. and that they're happy was a process I legitimately just enjoyed. Never was a chore to go to work because I'm like, all I do is I make sure that people are happy. And for me, that was a process. I know for other people who that level of interacting with other people, particularly customers, would have been miserable.
Yeah.
But so it doesn't have to be writing a book, but find something where the day-to-day is going to be enjoyable and kind of chase that lead.
Yeah, there's that old proverb of find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life, which isn't true.
No.
Even like this is my dream job, writing books with my friends. And there's still absolutely days, even mental health aside, where it is drudgery.
Yep.
But ultimately, your way of framing it, I think, is really great. The process that I go through, the actual day-to-day grind of what I do, I love, even on the days when it's hard and I hate it. I've got a brother-in-law who went into finance just because he knew it paid well.
Yep.
And he had many years of hating his job before he finally kind of found an equilibrium and found a part of that industry where he enjoyed working, and now he's doing much better. But
so
also he owns like 7 smokers and I own 1, so
you got to get those other 5 kids of yours on cigarettes. Thank you, Donald. And hey, how's that, Ben?